Welcome back to the Cannabis Podcast. And in this video, we're going to talk about the top 20 cities in the United States that consume the most cannabis. Now, I'm sure you're curious because I was curious because I've lived in multiple cities and I've smoked and consumed in multiple cities. And I've always wondered which one is the most in the United States. Now, we have another video about the top in the world. Be sure to check that one out if you haven't already. So without further ado, let's get into it. United States of America is the country that smokes the most weed in the world. The American legal cannabis industry fared well in 2023. According to Whitney Economics, legal sales across 38 states allow some form of regulated marijuana reached $28.8 billion, a 10.3% increase from the previous year. Meanwhile, the legal cannabis industry also added almost 23,000 new jobs last year, a sign that the business climate has stabilized somewhat nationally after the turmoil of the previous 2 years. Increasing legalization of cannabis and rising acceptance of its use for medical purposes are obviously the key factors driving the growth of the market. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to tell you how they came to this data. They refer to the 2023 Cannabis Price Index by the CFAH, looking for the American cities with the highest weed consumption. To keep the list relevant, they only selected larger cities with populations of 200,000 or more. When two cities had the same consumption, they ranked them by their average price per gram. All right, without further ado, drum roll please. Let's get into it. Number 20, Kansas City, Missouri. Missouri legalized adult use cannabis in November 2022, and the state's regulated weed industry has witnessed explosive growth ever since. More than $2.29 billion worth of legal adult use and medical marijuana has been sold in the Show Me state since legalization. Number 19, Boise, Idaho. Now, this one surprised me. While its neighboring states allow recreational and medical marijuana use, Idaho remains strictly bud-free. However, hundreds of consumers travel every day to Oregon to purchase cannabis products. And in 2022, the border town of Ontario, Oregon, boasted a total of $104 million in cannabis sales. And this is especially impressive, given that the town has a small population of only around 11,000 people. According to the mayor of Ontario, the town's cannabis market caters almost exclusively to Idaho residents. Number 18, Honolulu, Hawaii. The Hawaii State Senate passed a bill to legalize recreational marijuana for adults and create a regulated and taxed market for adult use cannabis. If passed by the House and signed into law, the legislation will allow adults aged 21 and older to possess up to an ounce of cannabis and up to 5 grams of concentrates as of January 1st, 2026. Number 17, Miami, Florida. Even though medical cannabis has been the law in Florida for years, it's illegal to consume marijuana for recreational purposes. In April, the Florida Supreme Court gave the final green light for Amendment 3 to head to the ballot this fall, which would effectively legalize recreational weed in the Sunshine State. Now, if you're in Florida or you live in Miami, make sure you look at the details of that ballot initiative and get out and vote if you are pro-cannabis. And if you're not, maybe you find something different to do that day. I don't know. Number 16, Baltimore, Maryland. Recreational marijuana became legal in Maryland starting July 1st, 2023. In just the first 5 months since legalization, the state's adult use cannabis sales managed to cross $270 million. Maryland's handing out 75 dispensary licenses this year to gain more legal retailers, with 11 going to Baltimore. That'll be sure to bring in a lot more tax revenue in the next coming years. Number 15, Washington, D.C. Although D.C. voters approved the legalization of possession of minimal amounts of marijuana for personal use in 2014, a rider from a Republican in Maryland has barred the district from using its local tax dollars to implement a commercial cannabis market for years. This changed last month when a GOP House committee unveiled a large-scale spending bill that omitted the long-standing rider, thus opening doors for Washington, D.C. to legalize recreational marijuana sales. Be on the lookout for that if you're in D.C. A lot of these cities legalize and drag their feet. It's another way for them just to kind of not do it. Number 14, Detroit, Michigan. Michigan is the state with the highest per capita sales of weed in America at $132. It was also announced recently that the Great Lakes state has even surpassed California as the largest cannabis market in the U.S. in terms of sales volume. In May 2024, Michigan sold 24.2 million units, while California sold 17.3 million units. However, California still takes the lead in terms of revenue due to its much higher prices of weed and probably quality. But that's just me being a California kid. I'm biased. Number 13, Albuquerque, New Mexico. The first recreational dispensaries in New Mexico began licensed sales of weed in April 2022. It was announced in March that the state's cannabis industry has already crossed the $1 billion mark with $75 million in cannabis excise taxes going to the state general fund and local communities. There you go, New Mexico. You're definitely a state and a city that needs all the tax revenue help you can get, so I'm glad you're using it in a good way. Number 12, Boston, Massachusetts. The legal marijuana industry in Massachusetts is showing signs of maturing. In 5 years since the first recreational dispensary in the state opened in Northampton in 2018, legal retailers have sold more than $7 billion in medical and recreational marijuana, according to data. But prices have plummeted from a high of nearly 15 a gram in flower when stores first opened to almost 5 grams this year. That's a testament to the lack of mobility for the cannabis being able to ship state to state. So all these states are hammering them locally. Okay, just outside the top 10, coming in at number 11 might surprise you, Lincoln, Nebraska. The state of Nebraska has decriminalized possession of small amounts of cannabis, punishing possession of up to 1 ounce with a $300 citation. But the sale of any amount of marijuana is still a felony. However, it was announced that Nebraskans for medical marijuana turned in 2 petitions to the Secretary of State to put medical cannabis on the November ballot. With a per capita weed consumption of 12.64 grams, Lincoln is included among the most stoned cities in the U.S. That surprised me, but a shout out to Lincoln, Nebraska. Husking a lot of corn out there and growing some green. All right. Moment you've all been waiting for, the top 10. Let's get to it. Number 10, Las Vegas, Nevada. While recreational marijuana has been legalized in Nevada, it's only legal if you're 21 and up. Smoking in a private residence, pushing consumption under the strip, into parking lots, and really pretty much everywhere in the open around the city. As a solution, marijuana consumption lounges were approved in September 22 in Las Vegas and Clark County. In February 24, Smoke and Mirrors, the first regulated cannabis consumption lounge in Nevada, opened up in Las Vegas, giving visitors a place to legally enjoy their weed. I can't wait to go to Vegas. I've been there quite a bit. Haven't been in a while, but can't wait to go check out that lounge. Although, if I ever want to just enjoy a lounge, I just use my living room. But that's just me. What do you do? Let me know in the comments. Number 9, Seattle, Washington. Reaffirming the importance of the medical benefits of marijuana, a new law took effect in Washington state last month, removing the requirement for patients with a medical cannabis card to pay the 37% excise tax, reportedly the highest tax in the country for cannabis. With an average price per pound of around $234 for high-quality weed, Washington's included among the states with the cheapest weed in America. So I'm glad they got rid of that excise tax for medical cannabis users, which that should be across the board. It's medicine. Don't tax medicine. Number 8, Portland, Oregon. Portland was declared the weed capital of the U.S. or best weed city in 2023, according to a study by Real Estate Witch and Leafly. Portland Community College is also now offering cannabis programs to students who want to pursue a career in the marijuana industry upon graduation. Oregon is included in the states that smoke the most weed in America, with an estimated 32% of its adult population having smoked up within the last year. Oregon's also the state with the most dispensaries per capita, with 16.5 cannabis dispensaries per 100,000 people. That's a good data point. I like that. Number 7, the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado. Colorado's weed market has rapidly declined over the last few years, mostly due to the plummeting prices. In 2020, the state's legal cannabis market soared to $2.2 billion, but just 3 years later, sales have declined to $1.5 billion. While cannabis tax revenues also fell by 30%. Okay, they fell by 30%, but they're still bringing in tens and hundreds of millions of dollars in cannabis. And what they've been able to do there with their cannabis revenue, with the roads and the schools, is quite literally a pilot program that every state and city should use. But I digress. Number 6, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania state lawmakers have recently announced their intent to file a new bill to legalize recreational cannabis. Estimates that the Keystone State's adult use marijuana sales would range from $1.7 billion to $2.8 billion in the first year, while bringing in, ironically, $420 million to $720 million for state coffers. Now we're reaching the top 5. Number 5, Phoenix, Arizona. According to the Arizona Department of Revenue, the state's retailers sold nearly $1.5 billion worth of recreational and medical cannabis in 2023, a record since adult use sales began. Meanwhile, the recreational cannabis market contributed $172.8 million in excise tax revenue for the Grand Canyon State. That's a grand haul in tax revenue, I'd say, with the lion's share going to community college and provisional community college districts. So tax revenue going to education, which goes to health, which leads to a healthier populace. Number 4, Houston, Texas. Recreational use of marijuana is illegal in Texas, though in several cities and counties, small amounts have been decriminalized. However, huge quantities of legal bud make their way across the border from Mexico and still go for about the same price as 25 years ago. So that's the same. Dallas has a ballot initiative. They're trying to decriminalize. Lubbock tried it. Austin decriminalized it. So if you live in Texas, make sure you check out what's going on with your city in decriminalization. You might have a ballot initiative on your ballot in November that'll make you get out there to vote. Number 3, Chicago, Illinois. Illinois governor announced earlier this month that Illinois had hit a major milestone with $1 billion in marijuana retail sales achieved on July 1st, 2024. Meanwhile, tax revenue from cannabis sales has led to more than $244 million in R3 grants for economic development, violence prevention, and youth development in disproportionately impacted communities in the state. 244 million people. We don't even have half the states legal, and look at all the tax revenue we're bringing in. Come on, let's get to it. This one bummed me out because we're not the top spot. But coming in at first runner-up at number 2 is Los Angeles, California. California is the state with the best weed in America. That's a fact, no arguments. As per the quality and availability of the plant, it's also the largest cannabis market in America by revenue, with $5 billion in recreational marijuana sales in 2023. However, this represented a 4.7% decrease from 2022. Declining retail prices, which peaked at an average of 35 an eighth in 2020, but then decreased by more than 32% per eighth in 2023. Tough competition from the black market also forces retailers to keep prices low, as 2 out of every 3 cannabis purchases are made on the illicit market. Now, I understand the illicit market and home growers cut into legal dispensaries, which in California you can grow 8 plants at home and like 16 if you have a medical. So it's a lot. So is the illicit market really cutting into sales, or is it cutting into sales with taxes? Both, probably somewhere in the middle. But I'd say the taxes are a big deal. A little bit more than the illegal market. Anyway, coming in at number 1 most consumed cannabis in this city in the United States is New York, New York. The Big Apple is the city that consumes the most weed in America. Although New York has finally started the legal sale of recreational cannabis, the state's budding industry is marred by illegal dealers, which outnumber their licensed counterparts by more than 10 times. However, a recent crackdown by New York State Cannabis Enforcement Task Force is proving to be effective, with 114 rogue stores shut down and over $29 million worth of illegal products seized last month. I wonder what they did with all that seized inventory. Where'd that go? Show me right now. Prove it. Prove me you still have it. Because I know in New York, a few months ago, not to get off on a side, but I know a few months ago or a year ago, a New York evidence locker warehouse just burned and went up in flames in New York. You should Google that. That's kind of crazy. Anyway, I digress. Back to the article. According to a 2021 survey by the CDC, an estimated 12% of New Yorkers aged 18 and up reported using cannabis in the past 30 days, while around 5.9% consumed daily or near daily. However, these numbers are expected to have received a boost since the legal sales for recreational weed started at the end of 22. Duh. Well, there you have it. There is a list of the top 20 cities in the United States that consume the most cannabis. Now, do you live in one of those cities? Have you been to one of those cities? What was it like? Do you agree with this? Did you feel like this was an accurate description? Like, oh yeah, I've been to Boise, Idaho. They smoke a lot of weed there. Or I've been to Lincoln, Nebraska. They do a lot of edibles there. They got a good edible business. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. I've only been to a few of these. I haven't been to Hawaii. I want to go to Honolulu. There's a couple other cities I want to go to that I haven't hit. But let me know, where have you been? Have you been to these cities? Did you enjoy them? And did this change your mind? And did it shock you? Also, be sure to check out our list of the top cities in the world for cannabis consumption. And until next time, stay blessed and don't forget to tip your bud tenders.